Disclaimer: all information shared on this podcast is based on opinions. Please seek your doctor's advice.
Welcome to Real Table Talk with your girl, Kimmy.
Hey guys, it's Kimmy and welcome to Real Table Talk.
Real Table Talk. Real Table Talk.
This is a place where we're going to have some interesting discussions. It's centered around women.
Real Table Talk. Real Table Talk.
Where you feel comfortable, where you can share your views, express yourself, and we just come together as a family. So stay tuned, guys, because the Real Table Talk is exactly where it is. Join us as we talk to Barbados' popular social commentator, Patrick King, on the topic, should I take the jab or not? Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for a riveting discussion. Welcome. We are so happy to have you guys. This is our first time where you can actually see us visually, and we're so happy to be able to share this with you. Today is going to be an interesting topic. I know it's a topic that everybody is talking about, and if you guessed it, you are absolutely correct. You know exactly what that topic is. You know exactly what that is. Should I take the job or no? So here with me in the studio for the first time, I have Mr. Patrick King. I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself to you. Welcome to the studio, Patrick.
Hi, welcome Barbadians. Welcome all viewing this podcast. Happy to have you.
Awesome. All right. So the topic, like I said, we're going to be talking about is should I take the jab or no? Before we get into our discussion, I just want you to say that this is just opinions that we're sharing here. We're not giving you any advice. You have to make that decision for yourself, but we're just sharing opinions as we talk through whether or not we should take the jab. So let's get right into it. So, Patrick, do you recommend that we take the vaccine? And if you do, tell us why.
Well, first off, I like to go with the science and not with the misinformation or the conspiracy theories relative to the COVID-19 vaccine. And based on the science, I think that it is prudent for anyone who would have first ensured that the physician would have thoroughly checked them out in relation to any issues, health issues that is that they might have, and give them the clearance, so to speak, on whether or not they are a fit and proper candidate for the taking of the vaccine. I also believe that the challenges surrounding the taking of the vaccine comprises of a number of individuals, and let me put them in various categories. You have the persons who are uncertain for reasons best known to themselves. You have persons who are anti-vaxxers who have decided one way or the other that they will not take the vaccine, irrespective of what the vaccine can do for them. And then there are others who are holding on to misinformation. And because of holding on to the misinformation, they find themselves in a situation where they are now not clear as to if they want to participate in the taking of the vaccine or if they should wait and see what happens along the line before they take the vaccine.
Interesting. I agree because there are a lot of persons who I have been speaking to who have shared that they don't have enough information as yet to make that decision. There are some persons who are actually saying that it's not that they are anti-vaccine, it's just that the way how they feel about vaccines altogether, they're just really not sure. And then the way how most governments are being so aggressive at they kind of comes across as though they're forcing it down their throat. Would you agree that that's what's happening now? That governments are already, forcing it down our throats to go ahead and take this vaccine?
Apparently, this happens to be the appearance at the moment. But the challenge is that having people vaccinated against COVID-19 must come in the efforts of patience. It cannot be that persons are being bullied or coerced into taking a vaccine, because the challenges that you're going to have is, one, you're going to come up against the rights of that individual, one, and then two, what will happen is that you are forcing a person who is not clear, because that the premise upon which communication rests is that those who are communicated to understand what is communicated to them, and that we must accept that all persons are not equal on the same level in relation to the receiving of communication. Therefore, we must be clear in our minds that what we are seeking to communicate to individuals in relation to the taking of the vaccines must be effectively communicated to them in order for them to understand that this is something that will help to save them. Now, the challenges that you are having based on the science of the vaccine is that the vaccine only protects an individual, which is a person from either hospitalization or going on a ventilator. That person, those are the only two things, to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, that the science has now proven that the vaccines can do. Outside of that, this is where the confusion comes. Outside of that, the person who take a vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine that is, can still catch COVID or can still spread COVID. And because this is a reality, what is happening is that persons are throwing their hands up in the air and saying, well, if I'm going to be still able to catch the vaccine, catch the COVID, sorry, having took the vaccine, then what is the use or the purpose of taking the vaccine? So I think the campaign drive must now be centered around how we communicate best to these individuals to help them to better understand that it is their health that you are seeking to protect, outside of the reality that even though they are vaccinated, they can still catch COVID. Because that if you have a person who is still mindful of the fact that they are still in a position to catch COVID-19, having been vaccinated, the mindset of that individual must now be intercepted by something that tells them that they are the ones who you are seeking to protect. And then we will move from there as the science becomes better and more effective, rather, for against COVID-19.
Okay, so I agree, but then okay, you understand what you're saying, that they need to make sure that they have that information out there, but the reality still remains the same, that whether if I take this vaccine, it doesn't stop me from catching COVID. But what they're saying is that yes, it helps you to be able to manage it more because now the body has the antibodies and all the special effects that they're saying. But the reality is you're still catching the COVID. And there are persons who we know of who have taken the vaccine and they have died. Recently, there's been a case that we've heard about in, I think it was St. Lucia, where we had a person who actually took the vaccine and they died. And of course, there are various complications and so on, but persons are taking it and they're still dying from COVID. So how would you suggest that the government, especially of Barbados, how should they go about being, so why should we take it? Because we may possibly still get it and we may very well still die. So why should we take it? What's the use of it?
Yeah, but see, what we must understand is that the science surrounding the COVID-19 vaccines has not guaranteed anyone who take that vaccine life everlasting. Neither have it guaranteed them that if you take the vaccine, that you will not die. What it has guaranteed is hospitalization or possible going on the ventilator or death. Now, while those things can fall into the equation, we still cannot be reckless enough to ignore the fact that the vaccine still adds another layer of protection. So while this is true that you can catch COVID even though you're vaccinated, the bigger picture must be zeroed in on, and that is that the likelihood of a person being able to prolong their life having catch COVID by virtue of being vaccinated is slightly greater than a person who refused to take the vaccine.
Okay. Okay. So do you agree then that the government of Barbados is receiving international pressure to have the population vaccinated?
I don't believe so. You see, what is happening is that what is happening basically is that because of technology, we are now in a position to see what is happening worldwide simultaneously. So we are seeing other approaches from various governments across the world, and because that our government might be seeking to do some of the things, not all, it may appear as though that they are following the crowd, and it may also appear as though that they are reaching that's why I start by saying that the crux of this matter and the fight of COVID-19 has to be centered around patients. If we decide that we are going to draw deadlines on reaching herd immunity, there's going to be a challenge, because in so doing, what happens is that those who are reluctant to take the vaccine and hesitant to take the vaccine will come across as though they are the ones who are slowing the process down. And that is not entirely true. So that is why I'm saying what the government of Barbados must continue to do with the act of patience is to keep their focus on effective communication, and that they must guide the citizens of Barbados in the direction of, one, paying close attention to legitimate sources of information, because it is the misinformation and it is also the alternative facts and the fake news that helps to drive people away from not wanting to take the vaccine. So government's focus and attention right now must be, while they are patient, use every opportunity to ensure that they get those who are hesitant come on board by virtue of their marketing strategy, so to speak, in having the citizens vaccinated.
Okay. All right. So how can they really do that if most some of the effects we're seeing here, when we look at our neighboring countries, we're seeing that they're pretty much starting to mandate it. Where we saw in Australia just only the other day, that their government stated that, if persons were not vaccinated, then they would not be out of jobs. So either you take the jab or no job. Then we saw here recently coming up in Canada that they're saying the same thing too, as effective of October. You can't travel on the train, you basically can't do anything. We just got a notice from the USA, and they're saying that in order to come to their country, all states, you have to be vaccinated. You have to be completely vaccinated. If you are you're not domestic, then you have to be vaccinated in order to come in.
I can announce that by Friday the 15th of October, every single authorised worker that is on that authorised worker list, whether they be in Melbourne or in regional Victoria, will need to have had at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. That is, if they want to continue working.
If there's people that don't want this mandatory vaccine, how do we manage it?
Well, then they won't be going to work.
Okay.
It's very, very simple. It's very simple. We want to open the place up. I'm not taking lectures on freedom from people who will hold all of us back. Right? We want to be free. We're going to be free. We're going to be open. And the key to that is getting these vaccination numbers up and up and up.
Does that mean you don't have confidence in that 80% number anymore?
No, not at all. We've just got to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And it's not about the ultimate number.
But will there be exemptions? I know you've just said there's a lot of...
No, there'll be detailed consultations, and I'm not looking to exempt anyone. I think I'm in the business of encouraging, and where necessary, through orders signed by the Chief Health Officer, mandating people getting vaccinated where they pose a significant risk. There's too much at stake. You will need to be double vaxxed as an authorised worker. even when after we get to 80% and the authorisations are no longer there, the mandate, the rule, the Chief Health Officer direction will stay in place, because cases will still be an issue then. But no, that's not the case. We're going to have a vaccinated economy and we're going to lock some people out, because that is far better than locking everybody down. That's the decision that we've made, and I would appeal to people. These vaccines are safe and they work, so please go and get one.
Then it goes even a bit further here in Barbados now. We are seeing that even to go to some hotels, you have to, if you're not vaccinated, they're not allowing you to come. They're not even allowing you to come and do buffet breakfast. You have to be vaccinated. What they are allowing is that if you do have at least one stick, you can come, but you must have at least one in order to come. So it tells me then that some type of pressure is coming, because they say that when America has a cold, that Barbados begins to sneeze.
No, I think part of the problem, one, yes, there might be international pressure, or there might be on the international arena, persons may seem to appear to want to reach certain deadlines in relation to reaching her immunity. The challenge is this. When I speak to individuals who are unvaccinated, what I'm hearing coming from them is that there is no differentiation between both persons. For instance, now, I recently traveled, and by so doing, I was not placed in any special category, having been fully vaccinated, over and above that person who's unvaccinated. Now, and I want to further explain that the negative PCR test must still be done both by the vaccinated person and the unvaccinated person. The vaccinated person still has to sanitize, wear mask, social distance. The vaccinated person still have to quarantine upon arrival. The vaccinated person still have to do a number of things that the unvaccinated person is required to do. So the question is being asked, then what are the incentives for me outside of one, the government at the there reaching her immunity, and two, the my personal health and safety, having took the job. What are the incentives outside of these parameters that would effectively cause me to want to have the job? Because what I'm saying is that if a person recognizes that they're being unvaccinated, still have to go through the same things and do and follow the same protocols and follow all of the other things that the vaccinated person has to do, then there is absolutely no incentive for that person to be vaccinated. So I'm saying what the governments across the region and around the world must focus on, and I will say this all the time, is that the message of their safety and their health in being vaccinated is paramount, and that must be reinforced, and they must seek through the same science to ensure that there is some differential between the person who is vaccinated over and above the person who is not vaccinated. Because I will tell you, a person who is unvaccinated has absolutely no reason to run and be forced to vaccinate at this particular point in time if that person is sharing the same experience as a person who is fully vaccinated.
everyone. I am Vicky Otarina from the island of Barbados. And you're going to hear me at the Next Level Virtual Summit hosted by Queen's Mindset, where it's time for you to elevate. You're going to learn to thrive in spite of your circumstances. But I'm going to be talking on the topic of discovering purpose. Discovering purpose. And what is purpose? Purpose is the reason for your existence. So I'm going to be telling you about your intentional attempt to discover the greatest potential that is inside of you. And not only discover, but giving you the steps on how to pursue and execute that potential that God has given unto you. You're going to be soaring to a higher level. What are you waiting for? Just head right over onto queensmindset.net and get registered. It's happening on November 20th at 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern, and it's only $50 US. That's the investment. This is a great investment to help you take your life to the next level, not only for now, not only for tomorrow, but for 2022 and beyond, because it's your time to elevate, it's your time to thrive, and it's your time to be great. I am Vicky Otarina, and I'm going to see you at the Next Level Virtual Summit.
So currently, right now, is there a law right now where it has to be where taking a vaccination is mandatory, especially taking COVID vaccinated? Is that a law?
No, there is and government will have to go and legislate. But as I said, the fight against COVID-19 cannot rest upon legislating and mandatory vaccination. It must rest and be wrapped up in patience and proper and effective communication to citizens to ensure that the message being communicated is the message that is received, and that those persons having received the message will then do what is necessary to protect themselves and their family.
I agree, but here's what they're doing. They're not making it, they're not saying, the government of Barbados is not saying that it's mandatory, but we're starting to see some changes that are coming on board as, they start doing simple things. Well, it hasn't happened yet here, but I see it happening because we see it happening already in our neighboring lands, where we see persons are saying, okay, you can't go to the mall unless you're vaccinated. You can't go to the gas station. I know for Guyana, that's it. If you don't have that paperwork to show that you have been vaccinated, then you can't do that. So soon enough, they'll be saying you can't shop in the supermarket. And then these are all the things that we need to do. So then it forces the person to say, I might as well, even if I don't feel comfortable, these are things that I need to do on an everyday basis. So at this point, I'm going to have to go ahead, even though they're saying it's not mandatory, but then they're asking for governmental officials to make sure that they have the vaccine, because then they can't work in that field if they don't have it. So they're saying it's not mandatory, but then you're seeing different actions. Do you think that that's what's going to come to us, to our shores pretty soon? Do you agree with that?
Well, as I said before, except and until that there's a differential between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, then there will not be a need for the unvaccinated to become vaccinated. I say that on the premise that, as you correctly said, other territories are now deciding that unless you are vaccinated, you cannot participate in either A, B, C. You can't shop. You can't do. So I'm saying that if a government decide that that is a position that it will take, or allow the private sector to drive the process by allowing only vaccinated persons, then it creates a differential. And then that's the point I'm making. So unless a differential is created where no harm is caused, but it places a person in a position to then have to check themselves and say, well, listen, there's nothing wrong with my health. I am in good standing in relation to my health status. I haven't checked the doctor and so on. So it helps to remove the hesitancy and that person will then become vaccinated. But it cannot be done in a manner that will cause a better fallout between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, because one of the things that you do not want to do in attempting to move in this direction is to create discrimination in and among the citizens in society. So the approach, I don't have a difficulty with the approach, except that the approach must be done in a manner that is not harmful or not create any unnecessary fallout between the government and the private sector in their quest to go in that particular direction. But I do believe that if a differential is not created where the vaccinated sits in a more privileged position, having been vaccinated, then there will not be a need for the unvaccinated to become vaccinated.
So, do you agree then with the hoteliers who are mandating that because they're getting pressure from their tourists? Because I read a story where you had the tourists who were complaining that you're saying to us, in order to come to the island, we have to be vaccinated, but then when we come to your hotel, your workers are not vaccinated, and if they're not vaccinated, we're not coming. So, what would you say in that case?
But it is only fair that if the United States of America is now on a program to have citizens vaccinated, then it is only reasonable and it's only fair that if their citizens are fully vaccinated and they are coming to a country to stay at a hotel, a guest house, or wherever, that they will want to be comfortable in and around a person who's vaccinated, because that to be honest and fair to the visitor who's vaccinated. And this is not an unreasonable request, because that we can't allow persons, while deciding that they have a right, to use the same right to trespass then on the rights of an individual who've also exercised their right to be vaccinated. So this is where the dilemma comes. So the divide is being created, and the divide must be brought closer, where the persons who work in the front line, hotel and airport, seaport, and all those areas who come in immediate contact with visitors and so on. I think it is imperative that these individuals get vaccinated as soon as possible. Now, I understand the science is saying that even though that you can still catch COVID, or you can still spread the COVID if you catch it, right? That is fine. But at the same time, your antibodies, according to the science and according to my understanding, your antibodies will be so adjust that you will be able to fight the COVID off without being hospitalized or have to go on the ventilator. So we must put ourselves in the shoes of the visitor who's fully vaccinated and want to ensure that when they land on the shores of this country, that those persons to whom they come into immediate contact, that those persons are vaccinated and do not place them in no immediate harm while they're moving around seeking to enjoy themselves on the island. So we gotta get with the program. I believe that, and that's what I keep saying. Those persons who work in the hotel sector, those persons who work on the front line, those are the persons the government must now target and have their marketing programs and strategies so designed that these persons will be able to understand the importance of being vaccinated.
Okay. So what if, right? Okay, I understand what you're saying, that the tourists, they have a right to to want that. But going back to what you said earlier, you said that it should be a choice. Persons to be able to decide whether or not they want to take it. So for the tourists now to say that, I'm not coming unless they do this, and because of money and money talks, the hotel industry, they've been out for a while because of COVID. So obviously they want to get things up and running. So now they're being forced, indirectly forced, because it's either you do it or you persons don't come. But what if I, as a hotel person who is working in the hotel industry, what if I'm not comfortable with taking the vaccine? No, I'm going to be forced to do that because my manager or the owner of the business wants. Is that a fair thing to ask? Because if we're saying that person should have the choice, that they should be able to decide whether or not they want to take it, then we're saying that they want you to take it and you decide that I have to take it or no job. How does that work?
But I think one of the things that those persons who are manning hotels and guest houses across the country, who are now active and in the front line of seeking to ensure that their employees are fully vaccinated, must do a few things. And one must be to seek to find out what has created the hindrance, what has created the fear and your employee not wanting to be vaccinated, because there has to be a reason why that employee is saying to his employer that they don't want to be vaccinated or they're not prepared to take the vaccine. And that if the answer to those questions can be found, then a strategy can be put in place to bring these persons to a position where they then understand the reason, the true reason. It's a part of the challenge upon why the hesitancy of the taking the vaccines rests. It's trust and miscommunication, misinformation, um, fake news, alternative facts are all of the ingredients surrounding the reason why persons don't want to be vaccinated. So the challenge of the employer who now owns a villa, a hotel, a guest house, a spa, whatever, the challenge of those individuals must now come together and decipher among themselves what is the best approach for us to take in order to convince our staff, outside of bullying, outside of coercion, and outside of mandatory and force. What is the best strategy? Because there has to be a way. What is this way that we can seek out to ensure that we have these individuals on board, fully understanding the necessity of becoming vaccinated in the job that you now hold? It is not rocket science. They can get it done. They need to sit among themselves and decide what is the strategy that they will be able to use going forward. Because the hindrance of these individuals rests here solely on trust. How do you now restore the trust on surrounding all of the fake news, all of the alternative facts, the conspiracy theories, and all the other things that has given rise to the fear of not wanting to take the vaccine? If they can decipher that, then they would market what you call a strategy around that will seek then to encourage these individuals who are no hesitant to become vaccinated.
Okay, so what if they do this? They provide awareness, they do all this stuff, they have their strategy, and they do that. But the individuals, it's a personal choice, and most of the times we are hearing now for persons, they're making this choice based on their religion, based on their spiritual walk. So they've decided that I'm not going to take this because they feel as though by taking this, it's going to harm my body more than it does good. Because we're hearing that the vaccine is actually made of. They're made of some ingredients that are that some of these ingredients you may find, and I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've heard. Some of these ingredients that you find in vehicle that persons use to like make the engine oil and different things they're saying that are being made to generate this vaccine. So what if that person is making this decision because they just really don't want to? So if I'm working at the hotel and I say I don't want to do it, you give me the strategy, you build the awareness, you give me all the information, you give me everything to kind of make me reassure me that it's going to be fine if I take this, but I still take the stance that I do not want to take this. Then what do you suggest that the hoteliers do?
Well, then, because you see, one of the things that we must be mindful of again is that the hotel is able to pay its bills by the presence of the visitors. And that if it is the wish and the will of the visitors to have those persons who they will come into immediate contact with, if it is the wish and their will to have to function among persons who are fully vaccinated, then the hotel then will have to make a decision. But I'm saying before we reach that stage, that there must be a way that can be sought for a person who is hesitant. We have understood clearly that there are 3 or 4 components that rest on the fear of persons not wanting to take the vaccine. Therefore, if it is not true that oil engine oil is no one of the compositions that is made to create the vaccine, if it's not true, bring it by the evidence to prove so that you dispel that notion. All the things that are not true must be brought to the fore and show up for what they are. Once that is done and it is clear, then you move on. So I'm saying, if a person does not trust what is being said to them based on misinformation that they would have received, the approach has to be the only way that you can remove the fear through your approach is to bring the evidence that will substantiate that these things you have heard, these things you have seen are not true. You see, one of the challenges that we are having surrounding the COVID-19 vaccines is that we are now witnessing a lot armchair experts who are giving advice. We are witnessing persons who would have studied and learned at Google University. Because everything that they hold on to is founded based on the platforms of Google. There's no evidence, there's no proof to a lot of the things that they're hearing, but they're prepared to share them nevertheless. And this is where the challenge lies. Because if some person has identified themselves as Dr. Thomas, Dr. Thomas cannot only be identified as Dr. Thomas by the wearing only of a telescope around the neck of that individual, and using the platforms of YouTube to carry a message that is false. And then you have persons then who are now relying on the same information. No credentials has been given. He has not identified and said there's no way you can go to trace who and truly is Dr. Thomas. But Dr. Thomas information is being relied on and then circulated in mainstream society, and people are then using it to make decisions for themselves. And now this is where the challenge lies. So when the lie gets a head start, then the truth has difficulty to catch it. Part of the reasons why a number of countries, governments that is, are now facing this challenge, the hesitancy of vaccines among the citizens, is because that the lies and the misinformation got a head start. And once the head start was galloping, the truth, while it might eventually catch up, at the same time, lives are lost by the misinformation out there. And this is where government must hold the bull by the horn and ensure every single piece of misinformation that has been presented by the fake news individuals, conspiracy theories, and all these individuals, it must be arrested. It must be arrested and counteracted by the facts. If that does not happen, government will continue to find itself in a dilemma in seeking to have its citizens fully vaccinated.
So do you agree then? You agree with the statement that says that the vaccine has in technology that will track humans? We've been hearing that being tossed back and forth. Do you agree with that statement?
That's utter nonsense. I want to say this, and I say it without fear or favor. Persons are being tracked by these. All of these electronic gadgets carry a GPS system that obviously you can turn them off and turn them on. That helps you to know, help others to find you and know where you are. And there are other things within these that when you ever use them, depending on the platforms that you go on, that help to track you. The credit cards that are issued daily by the commercial banks in this country are the means by which you can be tracked. Right? So there's no vaccine that comes out in the form of liquid that can then be used, become into a metal or any type of substance such as metal that then can be used to track any individual. Individuals are tracked by the very phones they use, the very credit cards they use. Now we are hearing now that the banks are pushing something called a cashless society. So if you have a cashless society, it means if I go to rent a car, I pay for that car through the means of a credit card, the payment of a credit card. Then there's record that I went at 4 minutes past 4 o'clock on Saturday and rent a car, and this is what I paid. I go into the supermarket and I use the same credit card. There's information that I went to the supermarket at 6 o'clock, and these are the items I bought. So you are tracked by the credit card and the phones more so. There is no mechanism within the COVID-19 vaccines by way of which a person can be tracked. So it is nonsense and should be dismissed as nonsense.
So we're running close to the end of our time, but I do want to ask, do you believe that the jab goes against our religious beliefs?
The bottom line, I heard it talk all the time about the religious beliefs. And there is nothing I have come across or read in the Bible that would have suggested that vaccines, medication, or any such thing are not the things a person should use for better health or even for their safety. Now, we must understand something. When this world was plunged into sin by the enemy, remember, God in his infinite wisdom, before the world was plunged into sin, God is in his infinite wisdom created the herbs as the healing of the nation. The Bible made that very clear in Genesis. Therefore, if certain things are extracted from the herbs and made in the form of medicines for healing, then someone must explain for me why then the COVID-19 vaccine can then not go against their religious beliefs, unless these individuals are individuals who are saying to me that whenever they become ill, they do not take Panadol, they do not take aspirin, they do not take any such thing, and that they allow their body to heal on its own without this medication, then I can follow the argument that they are presenting. Outside of that, I cannot seriously follow any argument logically that suggests that you will not take the COVID-19 vaccine for religious purposes, but at the same time, you are prepared to take other medication for safeguarding your health and your safety at the same time. There's a contradiction. So I don't understand if these persons who are saying this clearly understand what it is that they're saying.
So we're about to head out now, but I want you to answer this last question for me. What would be your advice to someone who is unsure about taking the vaccine?
as I said on my Facebook page, and I will continue to repeat it, that the first step is to go to your doctor, because there are a number of individuals who are walking around this country and that they do not know what their true health status is. And because that you are unaware, you should make yourself aware by visiting your physician and having a clear and precise checkup where the doctor can then advise you on if you should or if you are a fit and proper candidate for the vaccine or if you are not. I would not advise a person to just go, get in the line, get the vaccine, being unaware of what their true health status is. Because should that happen, what will happen if there is an adverse reaction to the vaccine? The vaccine then becomes the target, becomes that is now will be held up to scrutiny and be blamed for the death of that person. When in truth and fact, that person would have other underlying health issues for which they were unaware, and because of negligence, not having checked before, then the vaccine, the blame is then cast on the vaccine as the reason why you should not take the vaccine. So I would implore all persons who are unvaccinated to go. The clinics are there. You got the private doctors. If you can't afford the private doctor, you go to the clinic. Have a one-on-one conversation, because you are the person who experienced whatever challenges you have in your life. And by communicating these things to your doctor can then decipher based on what is communicated to him by the patient, which is the person who present themselves, as to what is really happening within the body. Checks can be run and checked and so on. And that person then will then be notified by the very physician as to what the true health status is. And once they have cleared all the things that in the estimation of the doctor, they have cleared all the things that have placed the health in a position where they can take the vaccine, then you go and take the vaccine. There's no reason to play politics. There's no reason to be defiant and seek to give use this opportunity to slow the process down. You understand me? When in fact the only person who you'll be hurting is yourself, because that should you collide with COVID, right? Being unvaccinated, your chances of becoming gravely ill and ending up on the ventilator, the risk is tremendously higher than the person who has the COVID-19 vaccine. I'm not saying that a person who has the COVID-19 vaccine cannot catch the COVID and die. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the added protection and layer is one that you can rely on in the event that you collide with COVID. So seeking to derail and create unnecessary challenges for yourself and your health and your safety, believing that you're holding the government hostage by not coming forward, does not make any sense. It doesn't.
But there you have it, guys. You have heard it from Mr. Patrick King. He has shared his views on should I take the jab or no jab. I want to remind you guys that this is just merely opinions and anecdotal evidence. You are in charge to make that decision for yourself, whatever decision you deem fit for you. We are just sharing our views here. Once again, if you have not subscribed to this channel, I want you to go right ahead and subscribe to this channel, as we would continuously have information coming out. I think we're going to have to do a part 2, because I can see a lot of questions are going to come out from this. So we do look forward to having that part 2, and possibly if we can, we'll see if we can get a doctor on here to hear it from the medical side, so that we can be more informed and know exactly where we stand as it relates to the jab. So once again, thanks for joining us, and do have a wonderful day.
This is a place where we're going to have some interesting discussions. It's centered around women.
Real, it will talk.